how surreal it is to be back here 25 years later, and all the things, how quickly those that time has gone by, just to be back in New Orleans.
Yeah, it is very eerie because 25 years ago, we lost to Georgetown in the Garden senior night by 30 points, lost in the Garden by 31 points. And now on our way back to Providence, we're picking up Carlton Screen, who just had meniscus surgery. Pick him up on the bus, head back. And then we go to the Sweet 16, and where do we go? Louisville, Kentucky. Have to play Alabama, who was great that year. I think they went undefeated in the SEC with Mark Godfrey, the coach of NC State, was the point guard. Farmer was the two guard. Ansley. They had a great team. McKee at center. And we beat them convincingly, but they shoot 57% for the game. We shoot 68% for the game. And then who do we have to face in Louisville, Kentucky to come to New Orleans but Georgetown? We're getting killed by. So it was never a game. We won the game, and Billy the Kid and Delray weren't factors. Our inside people and Darryl Wright, our sixth man, were major factors. And throughout the time before we go to the tournament, I keep getting texts from Harold Starks, who's the coordinator of this group of Bad News Bears. And where we're going to do it, we decided on either New Orleans, where the Final Four would be held, Kentucky Derby, or Miami. And they chose Miami. So we're talking about this reunion throughout the whole tournament. And who do we have to face to get to the tournament but Billy the Kid? And Billy's the only one who doesn't know about this because they don't want to bother him. They're bothering the coach. So I said, we're all set. Have you told Billy yet, Harold? He said, no, not yet, Coach. I said, will you tell Billy so he's aware because he doesn't know anything about it? We tell him. And now where do we have to go for the Final Four? And, of course, New Orleans, and we're in it. So it's amazing that all these things take place and everything's intertwined of places you've been. And we're very excited to be back, needless to say. There was no planned reunion in New Orleans for us, and we're excited to be here.
Right here.
Hey, Randy Kovach, Kansas City Star. Could you bring us up to speed a little bit on Borgie? Just his, from the skinny guy you first started with, how did you come upon him, and how far he's come?
Well, Gorky, as you all know, is from Senegal, and we had a commitment from a young man on his team named Coleman. Went to watch him play. I was with Walter McCarty, and I said, well, I'm not sure about this kid, whether he's our type of basketball player. He didn't work really, really hard at the time. And I said, I really like the center. Do you know anything about him? And we asked Rob, the coach, about him. I said, is he open? He said, yes, he's open. I said, like him. I said, he's just thin, but he's not like most of the kids I've seen from Africa. He's got really a good finesse game. So we started recruiting him. And when I first met Gorky, it was in December, and he spoke very little English. And then come February, he spoke really good English. And I marveled at that because I was going to be the Puerto Rican national coach, and I subscribed to learn how to speak Spanish, got all the tapes, and I marveled at it as I was doing 2 hours a day trying to learn to speak Spanish, how well Gorky did, because I couldn't get to his level, needless to say. So it's Rosetta Stone did not do me well compared to Gorky.
But you went to Africa? You went over there?
No. We saw him. He was at Huntington Prep.
Okay.
When I first saw him play.
Which is where?
Huntington Prep is in West Virginia.
Third row on the right.
Rick, Bob Baptist, bonus dispatch. You've taken a lot of teams probably under domes, and some of these kids in this tournament have never played under dome before. Do you get your guys to focus on anything in particular in that type of environment?
We worked on it today. We shot the ball great today, and what we did was we worked on a 5-foot shot, a 6-foot shot, a 7-foot shot. We worked our way out, and then we started scrimmaging, and we shot the ball great today. We really did. I don't think it'll be a major problem. It won't be for Kentucky because they shoot a lot of layups and dunks. So usually that's not a big problem for them. It could be a problem for us. But you got to work inside out. And look, we're just so excited to be here in terms of what we had to go through to get here. We played 4 great Big East teams to get to the championship, and then we really played 4 outstanding teams in a tournament. Extremely well-coached teams. You know, you're talking about Michigan State and Florida and Davidson, and who am I leaving out?
New Mexico.
New Mexico was extremely well coached. New Mexico could be here in place of us. I mean, they were great. So we had to beat 4 extremely well coached teams to get here. The competition was great, and now we're going to play the best team in the country. So we're excited about that.
Len?
Did you hear about the story the other
Good afternoon, Len.
How are you? You don't know my odds on it.
Len had us in the New York Post 150-1 to win the Big East tournament. That's how much respect he had for the University of Louisville.
My final thought. Did you hear about the story the other day that a kidney dialysis?
Yes.
Okay, 68-year-old, 71-year-old man.
Did we win the fight?
What was your reaction when you heard that? Because you've seen this rivalry from both sides. That's my first question. Second, is it similar to anything else? You've been in Boston and New York.
Well, you know, people always ask about the best rivalry, and the purists will say it's North Carolina Duke because they're in the same league. But I have a different perspective. You know, you all watched Glory Road, and you saw the depiction of the racial lines. Well, it all started with the racial lines in Louisville, Kentucky. We're the minority university. They're the university of the privileged, so to speak. And it started in the racial lines, and that's where the rivalry really started. And then it was thrown out the window when Tubby Smith became the first African-American coach, and you didn't think of it. The hatred wasn't based on race any longer. That was over, and I did everything humanly possible to recruit Louisville to end those lines because I didn't like it. Now the lines are no longer racially motivated. It's just pure hatred.
Second row, and then we'll come to Bob.
Rick, could you take me through the process that you get ready to make a motivational speech to your team, and then you already started thinking about what you want to say to this team in particular in this situation?
You know, really, you don't have to motivate your team when you're 2 games away from a championship game. The motivation's thrown out the window. You had to motivate in the first game, the second game, the third game, and then the motivation's really out the window. It's more about preparing your team for what you're about to face, a great basketball team in the University of Florida. And for 32 minutes, Florida had the major edge in that game. And then they didn't make another 3, and we had to change, they had to change, we had to change, they had to change, and we were lucky enough to win it at the end. But they definitely outplayed us in that basketball game, and we were lucky enough to win the game. And now you're playing the University of Kentucky. We played them early in the year. They were a young team. We were a team that was banged up and injured, and Shane Bohannon didn't play too much. But they are, I don't know what they're better at, offense or defense. And that's the greatest compliment you can give a basketball team. So you don't need motivation now. You're in the Superdome playing for the national championship or 1 game away from the national championship.